I'm excited about today's talk because we're talking about this journey of healing. And last week, we talked about this idea of how we were comparing healing in the healing journey to the season of Lent. And so we spent some time talking about that, Lent, and what we were talking about is the reason for the holiday is that there was this concept or this idea of wanting to represent the tradition of Christianity, and it came down to they wanted to go back and they wanted to reference Noah, they wanted to reference Moses, and they wanted to reference Jesus, and there was this 40-day thing that I spoke about last week. But then I also said, yeah, but there's also the metaphysical part of it, and so we talked about what the Fillmores believed this idea of Lent was about, and I mentioned how Fillmore said that Lent is a time of spiritual growth and a time for progressive unfoldment. We can merge our mind with God mind. The way is open for God to glorify us and lift us into a higher, purer, more spiritual state. And so this idea of, wow, you've got the traditional Christian view on Lent, but then you can also have the metaphysical thing on Lent, which means that you could really use the Lent season to go through a profound change or healing, which again is what we're talking about, right? This idea of healing while you're going through the Lenten season. And so what I did was I shared with you a definition that said then Lent really is a process of purification whereby I clean out consciousness and old error thoughts and emotions. And then I suggested, hey, why don't you think about Lent, the idea of letting go of something? And I said, what if we came up with a concept or an idea? And my concept or idea was one that, I don't know, I think one or two of you in here may struggle with, and that was, who remembers? Who remembers? Who's listening? Do we remember? Oh my God, bingo, beautiful, thank you. Yeah, I'm separate from God. So what if we focused on that? Not a bad idea, right? And then I came up with this affirmation that I shared with you. I'm not going to repeat the whole thing now, but it was this idea of what if you just took that one thought or that one idea that you're separate from God and you worked on that during this Lenten season? That one thing. Now that may be your thing, maybe it's not your thing, but it certainly could be one thing that you could choose to focus on, which would be pretty cool, right? So then we came up with this idea of healing, a true healing formula, as I've talked about this healing process that we're going through in these talks I've been doing, this idea that healing is really about forgiving and releasing. And then Spirit does what it does, and it starts tapping me on the shoulder and said, yeah, but I think there might be just a little bit more. Just a little bit more. And that's what I want to share with you this morning, is this idea, well, what could be a little bit more, right? So I go back to the Dynamic Laws of Healing by Catherine Ponder, and as I'm reading that, it says, while people have sorely wanted health, they had not opened their minds to receive it. And all of a sudden it was like, hit the brakes, slow down. What? You mean when you're healing, you actually have to receive it? It's like, wow. So we actually have to receive our healing. Holy cow. I missed the memo. I mean, it's like, seriously, like when you're healing, it's like, my belief is that what happens is when you start to really want to heal, when you make, and we're going to talk about this in a second, I'm not even going to say that because it's going to steal what I'm going to say in a second, so I'm going to let that one go. But what I'm telling you is that when all of a sudden you decide to heal, I've said this often, that the entire universe goes, oh, I get it. You want to heal. And then the entire universe stands up behind you and starts going, well, here you go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. And it starts to support you. And then all of a sudden, guess what? You're going to start meeting people. You're going to start talking to people. You're going to start looking at books. You're going to start hearing songs. You're going to start doing all this stuff that is going to lead you to your own healing journey. And your healing journey looks different than my healing journey and looks like different than everybody else's healing journey. Because you know what? I don't know what your healing journey is, what it looks like. Is it mental? Is it physical? Is it emotional? Is it spiritual? What is it? We all have different things at different times, in different ways, looking like God only knows what. Well, God knows, but we don't, right? But you just never know in your life when you start going through one of these healing processes of what it's going to look like. And so we start this idea, this whole thing is like, wow, so you can actually receive it. Well, of course, receive it. Why? Because you're not alone. Oh my God, do you know who you are? Do you know the legions, and I literally mean that, of angels that are standing behind you waiting to serve, believe it or not, it's going to freak some of you out when I say this, but it's true. They're there to serve you because of who and what you are. That doesn't mean arrogance. It doesn't mean, well, look at me. No, you are the divine, and the angels are there to support you. And when all of a sudden you say, yeah, I think I'm going to commit to my own healing, then you get these angels standing behind you saying, giddy up, let's go. Let's do this. So, but you have to receive that. You have to literally receive it. And it's like when you think about that, it's like, oh my God, how did I not get this before? Right? So, in Jesus' healings, it even references this a handful of times. So, there's a story about in the pool of Bethesda. Jesus visits the pool of Bethesda in Jerusalem where many sick, blind, lame, and paralyzed people lay, waiting for the waters to be stirred. So here's the deal. Way back in the day, there was this pool. And what the belief was back in the time, that you would see the pool all of a sudden start to swirl a little bit. And the belief at that point in time was, and this kind of sucks, but the first person in after the swirling got healed. So you had all these people hanging out at the pool kind of going like, all right, you ready? Let's go, right? So among them, Jesus noticed a man who had been paralyzed for 38 years. And instead of immediately healing him, he asks, do you want to be made well? He asked. And the man responded by saying, yes, but then explains that he has no one to help him into the pool when the water is stirred, and someone else always gets in before him. And then Jesus looked at him and said, rise up, take your bed, and walk. Done. And immediately the man is healed. He picks up his mat and he walks. What did he do? He received. Right? Jesus is hanging out. Jesus is being Jesus. I think one of the most powerful things to understand about that is if Jesus really wanted to, Jesus could have walked up into the pool and went poof, and everybody would have been healed. But I want you to understand something. That is not always somebody's own soul's journey. So that's why people go, well, why didn't he heal everybody? Why didn't he just heal the planet? If he's all that in a bag of chips, why didn't he just do that? It's like, no. That's your ego. That's you thinking you know more about everything than God does, and that's not the way that it works. Because every single soul has its own journey, its own process, its own awakening, and when it's time, then it makes sense for that person to be healed. And in this instance, instead of him going poof and everybody being healed, no. And I also believe that like Jesus is basically following God's direction, and I believe that he could hear, and God was like, yeah, that's a good one, zap that one. And Jesus went poof, and the guy was healed, right? But do you notice he didn't walk up to everybody? Because that is not what that particular group of people, that wasn't what their journey was meant to be. And he did it again. He did it one other time in the story of Bartimaeus. So as Jesus and his disciples were leaving Jericho, a blind beggar named Bartimaeus was sitting by the roadside. And when he heard that Jesus was passing by, he began shouting, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. And many in the crowd told him to be quiet. But he shouted even louder. Jesus stopped and called him. When Bartimaeus was brought before him, Jesus asked, what do you want me to do for you? And Bartimaeus replied, Rabbi, I want to see. And then Jesus said, go, your faith has healed you. And immediately Bartimaeus regained his sight and he followed Jesus. Again, what did Bartimaeus do after he told Jesus what he wanted? He received. He received the blessing of Jesus. And as I think about that more and more and more in my own journey, in my own healing, in my own process, I think to myself all the times in my life where I was sitting there begging and pleading and please God, please God, please God, please God. And I think it's going to be funny when I do my life review because I'm going to see those times in my life when I was really struggling, begging God to help me, and I'm going to see like all this stuff that was trying to come my way just to help me, and I just can't see it. And what I really think is going to happen is I'm going to look at that and go, wow, so you mean to tell me that at my darkest moments, in the darkest nights, that all I needed to do was open my heart up and receive what it is that you were trying to give me. And I really do believe that God's going to go, yep, that's all you needed to do. Do you understand that you have that because of who and what you are? It's not because of what you've done or you haven't done. It's because you have holy blood running through your veins, because you are the divine. You are a child of God. And when I say child, I don't mean little baby and no. It's like you are a reflection of it. You are a part of it. It is not separate from you. And then when you have that, then you sit there and go, oh, so you mean all this is for me? And the answer is, it's for you. And it's for me. It's for you. It's for you. It's for you. And it's for everybody else. And all we have to do is get out of the way and quit telling ourselves that no, it's for everybody else, but it's not for me. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Right? So, when I look at the definition, then I got to change it a little bit, right? So now I've got healing originally was forgiving and releasing, but we need to add receiving. But there's one other thing that I want to close this series out on. I want to go back for a minute to these three amazing, powerful, incredible, awesome, beautiful, inspirational women. All three of them went through their own healing journey. And all three of them, when something happened, they all three had to do one thing when it came to their own healing journey in order for the whole thing to make sense and for it to work. And that one thing that they did, which sounds kind of mind-blowing, but I think you'll kind of get it, is they all had to commit. They had to commit. When you hear the stories about Myrtle Fillmore, how it took her 2 years of saying the same affirmation over and over and over again, do you think she was committed? When you hear about Louise Hay and everything that she had to go through and all the stuff that she had to clean out of her mind, do you think she was committed to her healing? Because remember, we're talking about cleaning out the thoughts in our minds and the emotions inside of our souls that are sitting there lurking in the background, more than likely causing whatever you got going on. And when they realize that, then they're like, well, listen, minimally, I can do my part. Minimally, I can show up and start working on my thoughts and my emotions. Can't I? Can I at least do that and then commit to it? So there has to be a commitment in healing. When I was younger and a little bit less aware, let me put it that way. So what did it sound like? Please God, please God, please God, heal me. But then I'd go out the door the next day and that was the end of it, right? And I just think to myself, that is not what we wanted. It's not. We don't want something outside of ourselves to go poof and you're healed. No, we want to stand in our power and we want to actually be part of our own healing. And when you step into your own power and you're part of your own healing and you do it now with God, that changes. That's a ball game changer. That changes things. Because all of a sudden now you understand, no, God, it's you and I. We're doing this together. The two of us are making this happen. I'm going to do my part. I'm not looking at something outside of myself to do anything. Thank you very much. There's enough of that out there. I'm going to start doing my own inner work, and I'm going to start doing it and dancing and praying and doing everything I can, connecting with God to make my own healing happen. And that's exactly what those three ladies did, right? So we got to change one more thing to the formula. And then I promise I'm not going to add anything else until 2 weeks from now when I come back, and then I'm sure I'll add something else to it. But for now, I just want to add, to me, this is really healing. It's a commitment. Yes, there's forgiveness work. Yes, there's releasing work. And yes, there's receiving work. So now when we look at this idea of Lent, and we call it the process of purification, whereby I clean out my consciousness of old error thoughts and emotions, now we can go, oh, but I got to commit to that. Yeah, what am I committing to? Doing for some forgiveness work, also doing some releasing work, and then don't leave out, you're also receiving. You're also receiving. That is the healing process. So in closing, I just want to share this affirmation with you I thought we could do together. So for those of you that are in the process of healing, can we say this together? I now open myself to healing now. I am committed, I forgive, I release, and I receive. And so it is. And so it is. And so, as you continue to go through this process of Lent, and you continue to go through this process of letting go and releasing and all these other things like that, I think the last 2 weeks you've got a couple of affirmations that are pretty powerful and pretty cool that you could use. But just understand, every single person that decided to come down here on this planet, I think that means you, we all, for whatever reason, and we don't know why, all decided that we really wanted to work on something on a soul level. And for each one of us, that looks a little bit different. And that doesn't mean you're smarter than or less than. It doesn't mean you're dumb. It doesn't mean anything. It just means on a soul level, you said, no, I think I want to work on these few things this lifetime. But what happens is when you don't understand it, depending on your upbringing, depending on what garbage you were programmed with, when we start going through the process of healing, which I don't know about you, but for me, it looked pretty messy. Anybody relate to that? Uh-huh. Yeah. Uh-huh. But when you go through that, then all of a sudden it's like you realize that, no, that's just what I wanted to go through. And then when you start looking at yourself, then you're not doing it and judging. You aren't. Actually, you become way more compassionate. You do. You fall in love with yourself. You fall in love with the parts of you that you don't want to let anybody know about. Why? Because we all have them. And when you can start embracing those parts of yourself that you don't want to tell anybody about, that you're afraid of, you just want to get rid of, you want to ignore, and you can actually just go, nope, that's who and what I am. I promise you, your healing will happen a lot faster than trying to deny it, trying to ignore it, trying to affirm your way out of it. Imagine just absolutely falling head over heels in love with yourself, thinking you're the greatest thing since sliced bread. You're just brilliant. Don't ever forget that. Thank you for all that you're doing. It's not easy, and I know that. You're doing great work.
Hey, it's Reverend Mike here. I just wanted to stop for a moment before you get on with your day, and thank you so much for spending time with us this morning. It means the world to us, and I just wanted to let you know if there's anything that we can do to make your experience even better, please do not hesitate to reach out by going to our website. I also wanted to offer you the opportunity for us to get together and sit down so I could get to know you a little bit better and answer any questions that you have. I can either do that by either getting together in person, have a cup of coffee, or we can meet online via Zoom. If you're interested, please don't hesitate to reach out. You can reach me at michael@courage2thrive.com. And lastly, if you find these messages are helping you, we would be tremendously grateful if you'd consider donating to the center. The best and the easiest way to do that is simple. Just go to our website. Again, thank you so much. Hope you have a great day. Hope you're doing well. God bless, and we hope to see you soon. Bye-bye now.